Marshall hangs on versus South Alabama. The Thundering Herd create chaos in the Sun Belt. It's Locked On Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sun Belt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by Mazda. We put the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. All right, we'll get to the Old Dominion, Louisiana ball game. That was entertaining as well. A couple of really good basketball games on a Monday night in the Sun Belt. And this ball game was actually won in the first half by Marshall. They hang on to defeat South Alabama 84-80. And it kind of, it's kind of the way that Boeheim played defense and the way Richie Riley plays defense. Eventually, the threes are not going to go. And that's what happened tonight. And that's how a 16-point game became a 1-point game. However, Marshall made a couple of big three-pointers, not necessarily the smartest three-pointers, but they made a huge three-pointers in the second half to hold off South Alabama 80-40. It was, again, a great basketball game. And I'm not sure Marshall is a great matchup for South. Marshall has some real good size, and in this case, it allowed actually Stephen Williams to have a big ball game, and 19 points, 9 of 11 shooting, and 11 rebounds. Randy Brady didn't play hardly at all. Randy Brady played 12 minutes. All right. Chase Harris had another big ball game, 28 points, 6 of 8 from the free throw line. Actually took a three, did not make it. But Wyatt Fricks was outstanding. 27 points, 4 of 5 from the line, 7 rebounds. The problem was he was 1 of 7 from 3. I don't know if he's trying to do that to show he can. I think he can shoot threes. He didn't do it well last night, but all 6 shots that he missed were from 3. Otherwise, he didn't miss. He was 11 for 11, and they were either alley-oops or just dunks or putbacks, I guess. I guess an alley-oop is a dunk. Well, not necessarily. But he really was, all his makes were within a foot of the basket. All right. Jalen Spear hit some big threes. He was 6 out of 12 from three-point land. He had 18 points. Dubinsky made 4 threes. He had 12 points, and Joseph poured in 10 with his 3 threes. All right. So here's where the game, I won't say changed, but you could sort of see it going South Alabama's way. This ball game, again, was won. I'd say, did I say win? It was won. I may have said lost. Was won in the first half when Marshall could not miss from 3. This game was tied at 17 with 9 minutes to go in the first half. Marshall scored on, I believe, 7 straight possessions, 8 straight possessions, 20-17, 23-17, 26-19. All right. These are all three-pointers. 29-21, 32-21. They missed and actually got it back as Jalen Spear made a three-pointer. That's 35-23 and 38-23. They went on a 7 three-pointers, all straight possessions, to 6 run. All right. So in 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes, it was from 17-17 to 38-23. South Alabama did cut it to 13, actually had a shot to get it closer at halftime, but it was 48-35. So again, Marshall was 12 of 22 in the first half, which is a lot of three-pointers going in. And we know South Alabama gives up three-point attempts, but usually they're not quite that efficient. But because Marshall had made them, and this is what goes to why Boeheim played the zone back for Syracuse and why Richie Riley does it, is that eventually you will go back to the mean. Now, in this case, Marshall was too far out in front and did make some clutch three-pointers. They finished up. At one point in time, they were 5 of 20 in the second half. They ended up being 6-24. And really, that sixth is the difference in the game. South Alabama had pulled within 77-76, and Jalen Spear hit a top of the key three-pointer, which is much different than the 28 three-pointer he made earlier in the half. That stopped a South Alabama run at the time. They pulled within 4 at the time, and that made it a 7-point ball game. It was, again, a great basketball game, but Marshall just kept on shooting, and in this case, missing three-pointers. They held on enough to win the ball game. We know South Alabama doesn't go away. 84 points against South Alabama is pretty good, right? They give up about 65 points a ball game. Marshall scored 84, 48 in the first half. It was quite the ball game. But due to the win, we now have chaos. You have 4 teams with 5 losses. App State's 10-5. They're back in first. South Alabama is 9-5. Troy is 9-5, and Marshall is 9-5. All right. Out of that, on the top of my head, South Alabama has lost to all 3 of those teams. South Alabama lost to App. They lost to Troy. They lost to Marshall. They're going to play Troy coming up Saturday. So that's going to be decided by those 2 teams somewhere in there. All right. But because Marshall wins, now all of a sudden, Texas State is 9-6. They're 1 game back. Coastal Carolina is 8-6, and they're 1 game back in terms of losses. All right. Again, App State's played 15 ball games, South Alabama had only played 14 or had played 13 coming into the game, into last night's action. So they still got to make up 1 more ball game. Maybe they had like an off weekend in there, and App State only has 3 games left. So somewhere along the way, we will go over, well, maybe let's go over it now, I guess. Who's got the best shot here? See what App State's, I would have to write this down just to make sure I'm not doubling up. But so App State's playing Marshall, so someone's going to get a 6th loss, right? They got Georgia Southern and Texas State. So what happens if App State splits with Marshall and Texas State, right? All right. Texas State is playing, they get South Alabama, right? They're getting South Alabama at the Cajuns and App State. So that's 2 of those. Everyone's playing each other, which is actually a lot of fun. All right. So we saw what App State's doing. Let's see who else Marshall has to play. Marshall is at App State. That's coming up on Thursday. They're at Coastal, Old Dominion, and Georgia Southern. Okay, now they're home versus Georgia Southern. We'll see what happens there because Georgia Southern just put a pasting on them over the weekend. But Marshall's playing App State and Coastal. So someone's going to have some losses there. And Troy is the other one, right? Troy beat Marshall earlier in the year, so that's something. So who's Troy got? Troy's playing Monroe, South Alabama, Louisiana, and ULM. So Troy, by far, has the easiest of all these schedules, although I will say South Alabama is playing all these games at home. South Alabama's doesn't have another road game. They just played their last road game of the year until we get to Pensacola. So they're taking on Texas State. They're taking on Troy. They're taking on Monroe. They're taking on Southern Miss. They're not going to leave Mobile once they get back home, either last night or today, until they go to the Sun Belt Conference tournament. So they're going to be more than 2 weeks at home. It's a good chance. Talk about wide open. This is really wide open. I'm going to got to get up and go, trying to go to bed here. So I will, somewhere along the way, I will figure out if we can have a 6-way tie. 6-way tie. Yeah, 6-way tie for first place and champions. Because again, if South Alabama had won, they would have been 10-4 and ahead of App State. Instead, Marshall wins and everyone is collected at the top. So you got the 4 teams at the top, all within a half a game of each other. And those other teams have another game to play, whereas App State only has 3. All right. So that's going to be a fun last 2 weeks in the Sun Belt. That is for sure. All right. Let's take a timeout. We'll come back. Old Dominion and the Cajuns played a good basketball game. That was a lot of fun for 2 teams that had less than 10 wins. We'll talk about that next, right after I tell you about Mazda and FanDuel. This is Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on screen. All right, let's give it up to the Marshall Thundering Herd, right? They got blown out by Georgia Southern, giving up like 101 points. Georgia Southern's been averaging like about 60, 65 a game. They gave up 59 in the first half. They come back and they hang on to defeat what is a very difficult South Alabama team to play. They had a big lead. They blew most of it, never gave it up in the second half, and go on to win it 84-80. So a good job by the Marshall Thundering Herd. These remind us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It's that extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and I never quit. We put the same passion in every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. And FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA's final trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole shebang. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures. This time of the year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title, it adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can you pick cash, but you can also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right, let me tell you about the Everydayer Club before we get into the Cajuns and ODU. Thank you for making Locked On Sunbelt your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live Sunbelt sports every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Sunbelt with no interruptions, all for just $5 or even better, $50 a year. Go to lockedonsunbelt.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right. Only 2 ball games on a Monday. And the Cajuns and ODU were early, like a day game out in Norfolk, like 4 p.m. Oh, no, I guess 5 p.m. All right. 5 p.m. It was 4 p.m. Central Time for Cajuns fans. So it's 5 p.m., so it was easy to watch both ball games. That was helpful. And these two teams have not had a particularly good season, right? They're both, they're not having good years. Right. I think the Cajuns still only have 9 wins overall. Cajuns are 9-18, and Old Dominion is 10-18. All right. So both teams coming into the ball game had nine wins on the season. However, as of lately, they've both been tough to beat. And that is actually, due to coaching. All right. Because you can get a lot of teams getting to quit, right? You even have a player on one of the best teams in the nation that doesn't seem to want to play. I don't know how true that is. His coach came to his defense, but that's a different podcast. All right. And so if we go to, let's see, ODU, before we get into this, ODU won this ball game. I'd say going away, but it really wasn't. If I could find the finals here. Let's see here. They pulled away at the end is what I would say. 83-72, but it was closer than that for the most part. And again, ODU, that's a lot of points against the Cajuns. Cajuns play much better defense. There was a lot of layups in this ball game. But just go through it, right? They did blow out. I will say ODU blew out Georgia State 78-55. That's a nice win. But they lost to Marshall by 2. They beat Ohio by 6. They lost to Monroe by 6. They got blown out by Texas State, but beat Arkansas State by 4. Lost to Troy by 6. beat App State by 2, lost by 3 to Georgia Southern, 1 to James Madison, beat Coastal by 4, right? So they've had like 2 or 3 blowouts over the last couple of months. All right. Let's see what the Cajuns have done. All right. Cajuns have had serious injuries, all kinds of deals. Again, you guys know I'm a reasons versus excuses guys. They went on that 4-game winning streak, winning 5 out of 6. So they beat South Alabama. Well, let's go back. All right. So they got, they had a couple of wins, and that was it. They beat Monroe by 6. They got blown out by Troy by 20, lost to Texas State by 5, beat South Alabama by 3, did lose to App State on the road by 12, beat Georgia State by 10, Georgia Southern by 9, beat James Madison by 3, Central Michigan by 5, lost to Coastal by 4, and just lost to Old Dominion by 11, 83-72. But I would tell you this game was closer than that score. ODU pulled away at the end. It always seemed like the Cajuns were, I think, like one stop from getting back in to the ball game. On a side note, I'm not the biggest fan of ESPN's new way to do play-by-play. I guess they're giving me more. But see, this game was, let's see where we are. All right. It was 59-57. ODU was leading with 9 minutes left to go. Let's see if they got back in it here. I guess maybe they started to pull away there. And we got to be 69-63 with 4 minutes left to go. All right. Dorian Finister had a couple of free throws, made it 69-64. So it was a 5-point game with 3 minutes left to go. But Jordan Battle was just too much. All right. Jordan Battle had a spectacular ball game for ODU. He had 27 points on 7 of 10 shooting, 10 out of 11 from the free throw line, 3 of 6 from 3. Again, this is not Louisiana Ragin Cajuns defense. ODU shot 57% from the floor, 36 from 3. They were even 81% from the free throw line. That's kind of where they won the ball game because the Cajuns could not get back in it. Cajuns only shot 40%, but I feel like they went cold towards the end. They were 24-60, but they got a lot of easy shots. Jackson Olvera he was 10 out of 20 with 23 points. Finister, 17 points. These guys aren't hitting threes, because they're only 6 out of 17 from 3-point land. And free throws, they were doing pretty well, 18 out of 25. Old Dominion, though, hit 21 out of 26. All right. Casey Shaw had 16 points. Swanton Rogers had 15 points. The big guy, Zach Wiggins, had 12. Not a whole lot off the bench for ODU, but they got enough from their starters, 83-72. And so on the bottom of the top half, again, is App State, South Alabama, Troy, Marshall, Texas State, Coastal Carolina. And then you got Arkansas State, Georgia Southern, Southern Miss, JMU, the Cajuns, Georgia State, Old Dominion, and Monroe. And the question I will pose, and we'll have to figure this out with, maybe someone will start putting out brackets. What team is going to be where based on what the standings are at the time. Because it's going to be tough for a team to make a deep run. But it would have been interesting to see if the Cajuns moved up a little bit because they're going to be a tough out, right? Can the Cajuns take down a Coastal Carolina? Can the Cajuns take down a Texas State if they play them? In their second game, if you have to play 3 games and you're going to play Texas State, then it's going to be tough to do if that's your third game. I'm not sure that can happen. Can Georgia Southern surprise somebody? We're going to talk about that next. All right. That's what I want to do next. All right. Can anybody make a run in the Sun Belt? And, can anybody but the top 2 teams? I think this year seems to be as wide open as it can be in the Sun Belt. We'll talk about that next after I tell you about Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs help you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. Since I've been talking, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt. Your teams every day. About a month ago, I would have said Troy's going to win the Sunbelt Conference Tournament. They still very may well do that, but isn't it wide open? Troy seems to have the easiest path remaining. They have 2 games on the road, 2 games at home, but they're playing Monroe for 2 of the games, the Cajuns for 1, and their toughest game is Saturday against South Alabama. So they may still set themselves up, all right? But it is wide open to get to those semifinals, right? The top 2 seeds are going to be in the semis. The top 4 seeds go straight to the quarters. So even the 3rd and 4th place teams only have to play 3 games to win the Sun Belt Conference Tournament. My question is, a few years ago, South Alabama made a huge run all the way to the championship game against the Cajuns, and that's the Cajuns championship. What was that, in 23? They made a huge run then, all right? It may have been in 24. Yeah, may have been in 2024. No. Now my mind is off. All right. Whenever the Cajuns did win it, I'm going by when I got there. Yeah, it had to be 20. No, would have been 23. Yeah, maybe 23. Anyway, off the top of my head, my mind is confused. Anyways, when South Alabama, the point is that South Alabama made that run. Can we go backwards? Now this is going to bother me without me looking it up. We can go backwards, right? Because last year was Troy, right? The year before, it would have been JMU. And the year before would have been the Cajuns, I think. That's the way I remember it. All right. Or maybe I got the Cajuns and JMU mixed up. All right. Nonetheless, I did go to Mobile when we were with the Cajuns. Yeah, I did. All right. So I did go to Mobile. I did go to Pensacola for that. Anyways, off the beaten path. Sorry about that. My own little OCD and ADD all wrapped into one. Anyways, so what about Arkansas State? Arkansas State would be a great candidate to knock off one of the top seeds because they may not get to, they're not going to start at the beginning, right? They're not going to have to play all those games. Let's see what we got here. Men's basketball. So it's a 12 seed versus the 13 seed, and then 11 seed versus the 14 seed. So Arkansas State, as of right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're the 7 seed, all right? So they're going to play one of the previous seeds, all right? And then, they would get the 5 or 6 seed, whatever it matches up with. Maybe they get, presume it's the lowest one, but maybe not. Game 5 seed versus game 5 winner. So number 6 seed gets his game 6 winner. That's game 6. So they would play, like the 7 seed would play the 6 seed. Could they knock them off? Right? That's not out of left field, right? Arkansas State could take down Coastal Carolina, right? That's not crazy, right? And then could Arkansas State take the next team down? That's the question, all right? That's what I'm wondering, because then they end up playing Then they play the 3 seed. That's the question. So that's a team that would be interesting to me. That if Arkansas State is sitting there and they get a game under their belt, and we've seen this all through the Sun Belt tournament while it's been in Pensacola, teams that get a game or two in there, although now there's no day off. There used to be a day off. South Alabama benefited from playing a game, had a day off, and came back. They had that chance. So, interestingly enough, so we'll see. That would be Arkansas State could be one of those teams, because if they get hot from 3, they're tough to beat. But they obviously have not been playing well. I mean, basically, well, they did have a 3-game winning streak. They beat Coastal, Bowling Green, and Monroe. Okay, but they lost to South Alabama in a ball game they obviously should have won. They lost to Marshall, they lost to Old Dominion, they lost to Georgia State. They got a win against Georgia Southern. I mean, in there they lost 5 out of 6. So maybe they turn things around. They're playing the Cajuns, Monroe, Southern Miss, and the Cajuns. I mean, is there a reason they can't go 4-0 and go in hot? Maybe they take over and don't have to be in the 7th role. So that's one of those teams that I think could take down one of the larger seeds. That would be one. I guess Georgia Southern, just only because of that's recency bias, against what they did against Marshall. But I don't see. I mean, Coastal Carolina is is going to probably be in that mix. But I don't see a. Yeah, I'm not sure Louisiana's going to be able to do that. I guess JMU could do that. I don't think Southern Miss can do that. You know, Georgia State has just lost 5 in a row. Old Dominion might be able to do that. But the problem is Old Dominion is sitting at the bottom. So by the time they get to the top of the higher seeds, they've already played 3 ball games. That would be like their 4th ball game. Right now, they're sitting in 13th place, Old Dominion, right? So number 12 versus number 13, all right? Then they would have to play the number 9 seed. That's 2 ball games. Then they'd have to play the number 8 seed. That's 3 ball games. Then they'd have to play the number 5 seed. That's 4 ball games. I mean, that's going to be tough, right? That's the way all these conference tournaments usually are. But I mean, you can't. I would not expect an ODU to be able to pull that off. I think they could win 1 or 2 ball games, but I think by the time they play their 3rd one, they would be not rested. They would be a little bit too tired, all right? Whereas Arkansas State at a 7 spot, right, as a 7 seed, plays the game 4 winner and then gets a 6 seed. Well, this would be their 3rd ball game too. Now, compared to their 4th ball game. But you get your 3rd ball game on Saturday, March 7th. So here's the deal. All right. There it is. The regular season ends on Friday, the 27th. So now the 3 seed, whoever that may be, isn't playing until the 7th of March. Whereas, say, Arkansas State is playing as the 7 seed. They would play on the 5th, 6th, and 7th. So while that is a lot of ball games in a row, and maybe they would falter at the end, they would have a game or 2 under their belt, whereas the other team has not played for almost a week. I think the Sun Belt is completely wide open. Usually it is one of the top 2 seeds. We'll see how it goes. Because it's just too hard to win all those games. But I think it is wide open. As much as I think Arkansas State could take down Coastal Carolina, I think Coastal Carolina could make a run. I'm not sure Arkansas State could make a run all the way through the championship, but I think they could. You could knock a team off. But I think by the time you're playing your 5th game, and that even though the other team hasn't played, right? Because the other team wouldn't have played yet. One of the top 2 teams wouldn't have played yet. That's going to be too much. That may be a little bit too much when you're on your feet for 5 ball games compared to, not having played yet. So we'll see how that goes. All right. We'll do more basketball and baseball this week. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I am heading down to Louisiana. I will be down a week from Wednesday. I got to, just the way my schedule worked out, I actually had 4 regular days off. So I'm only actually taking 3 PTO days, which works out in my favor. But on a side note, it was more along the lines to see my guy, Mike Lavin. He had mentioned to me that they got invited to play LSU. So I'm going to see that over the weekend. But the Cajuns are playing UCSD, who just took down number 1 UCLA, as it turns out. So we're going to have some fun with that. The basketball team is out of town, unfortunately, so I won't be able to see them. But I will be in Lafayette for half the week, and then maybe Baton Rouge for the other half of the week. We'll see how it goes. But really looking forward to coming down there, seeing some Cajuns baseball, rooting on my guy Mike Lavin and his Northeastern Huskies against LSU, as the case may be. But it's going to be a real treat. Have not seen him in a minute, and he is actually one of the better mid-major coaches out there. So he needs to get a shot at a bigger program. Had like the longest winning streak in the nation last year. Did lose in the regional though last season. So it'll be good to catch up with Mike Lavin down there. But we're looking forward to catching up with everybody down there, and maybe we'll have a little bourbon down there as well. All right, we'll enjoy some of that. Want to thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe over at Locked On Sunbelt. It is a big help. Do appreciate you. Thank you so much. Don't forget about Apple and Spotify as well. Big help to subscribe there as well. We will talk to you. Oh, by the way, I will still be doing the podcasts while I'm down there. Obviously, basketball season is wrapping up, and I'm going to be seeing live Sunbelt baseball. So don't worry about that. We will have the podcast. I'm taking a vacation from work, but we don't seem to get a vacation from the podcast. So we will have plenty of that. Maybe we can get a football coach to hop on with me. Just saying. We'll see what we can do. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, have a great Tuesday, everybody. We'll talk to you again on Wednesday. You've been watching Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day.